Hello, welcome to the latest instalment of our Niggle Podcast. Once again, we have a change. This week, Dan Murphy and I are going mano a mano, one-on-one, face-to-face combat on the issues of the day. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. What a lot there is to discuss today.
It's been quite a busy week, hasn't it?
Well, there's been all sorts going on this week, hasn't there? And strangely enough, it's the only week of the season, apart from Christmas, where there isn't a PGA Tour event.
Oh yeah. I was actually got home last night and sat on my couch, ready to do my regular 7 o'clock feed the baby shift. Flicked on to Sky Sports, tuned into the PGA Tour event, and what do you know? There isn't one.
No, it was Europa League all the way on TV last night, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that left me thinking, actually, I missed it. I spend every other Thursday bemoaning the fact that I'm watching the same players play the same format, doing the same things they do every week, and wishing there was something else to watch. The one week it wasn't on, I immediately wished it was there still.
So what you're saying is that we think golf needs its equivalent of the international break, just so that you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And then after a week of not being able to watch, then we'll all be desperate to get tuned into some more relentless 72-hole stroke play.
Absolutely. I think absence makes the heart grow fonder. And just a little pause makes us all wish it was back again.
And if only it were back again, but was just slightly different to normal.
Well, yeah. So we've also had this announcement from the European Tour about a new event to be held in Australia after Christmas.
Yeah, let me just run through the facts as I understand them, which is not quite a complete picture, but maybe that's just me. So it's the event at Lake Carrinyup in Perth before Christmas. It's the start of like the new European Tour season, although obviously this being golf, it starts the previous season. And instead of playing the usual 72 holes, we're trying something slightly different, whereby there is a cut as normal halfway around. And then after 54 holes, we reduce it down to the top 24 players. Now, I don't really understand how it works from there, but there is a day of 6-hole match play games, and somehow that whittles down to a winner. I don't want to sound that I'm being sceptical, because I'm well up for the fact there's a different format. It can only be a good thing. I just don't quite understand how the 6-hole thing works at this stage. But broadly, I think that to me is a reason to watch that event, when, let's be honest, there would normally be very little reason to watch that event.
See, you say you're not sceptical. I am sceptical. Like, you're a man who, for all your faults, understands golf better than anybody, and you're telling me that you don't understand the format. So how on earth can you tune into that event, or how on earth can you watch that event, or how can the result of that event have any credibility when it's got absolutely no context?
Well, I'm hoping that when we see the event that it will all make sense, and I'm saying that I'm prepared to give it a chance, and I'm saying that I'm much more interested in tuning into that event when it comes down to it on that Sunday, and I think it's November, is it? That much more likely to watch it just to see if it works.
Well, yeah, I mean, from a novelty perspective, but it's not a credible way, it's not a given way of finding the best golfer over a period of time. So it will be treated as such by participants. It will be treated as a novelty event, a bit of fun, a bit of light-hearted entertainment in the off-season. It's not going to be a game changer in terms of how people consume golf throughout the season or in general. It's a one-off thing made for TV. I sort of don't get it.
Well, on its own, it's not going to change the world, but if the event goes well, then it may be, and it's entertaining and people like watching it, then it may be that the principle of it is maybe modified, I don't know, and we might see it emerge at other points in the calendar. And I go back to the point, which is that anything that breaks up 72 holes week after week after week has to be a good thing to me.
But then breaking up 72 holes week after week after week can be achieved just by having a break.
Yeah, that'll be another way of doing it.
And have we not seen this sort of thing before? So there's just so many things doing the rounds. Like there was talk about bigger holes a couple of years ago. There's been the rise of foot golf. There's that thing at Celtic Manor, target golf at one point. There's speed golf. Like this sort of fiddling around with the format, quote unquote, golf's answer to 2020. Why do we need it?
Yeah, there are two phrases that make me sick in my mouth that are to do with golf. One is the phrase 2020 of golf, and the other is golf's answer to Facebook. They're both terrible things. I don't see it as being golf's equivalent to T20. I just see it as being something slightly different to watch. And just speaking personally, it gets to the stage, especially at this time of the year, where even I can't face or raise any kind of enthusiasm for yet another tour event. That's just the same as the last one. So I do welcome the attempt to try something different. I was thinking about that modified Stableford event that they used to play on the PGA Tour in Colorado up to a few years ago. Isn't it sad that bit the dust? Because if that was on next week, which is a bad example, the Tour Championship is vaguely interesting, but if in the normal scheme of things, if that event was on, that would be way more interesting to me to tune into than a bog standard 72-hole stroke play. It's just amazing that we can't play some other formats some of the time, and just so there's something different to watch.
Yeah, so there's a few things of what you're saying though. You're using phrases like tune into or something different to watch. You're saying things are interesting from a spectator's point of view. And in my opinion, therein lies the problem basically. So we get this example of 2020 shoved down our throats. Why hasn't golf got an equivalent of 2020? People talk about it all the time. So 2020, as I understand it, has done absolutely nothing to impact on participation in cricket. Cricket participation is struggling as much as golf participation is, more so possibly. And shortened formats of people playing cricket have existed time immemorial. Wednesday night leagues, 8-ball overs, blah, 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 blah. Let's not beat around the bush. 2020 is a cash cow for TV stations. It delivers value for sponsors because of the amount of eyeballs over the events, both at the events and on television. But it doesn't get people with a cricket bat in their hand in a net or playing more regular at weekends. And a 6-hole format in Australia with the best players in the world is not going to get more people playing golf on a day-to-day basis. It might give the European Tour another reason to sell a sponsorship for a different event. It might increase viewing figures for that particular event. But the format that professional golfers are playing is not the issue with participation.
No, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with any of that.
So why then are people constantly trying to mess around with the integrity of golf, be it the amount of holes that are played or the size of holes that are used or using your feet instead of golf clubs? Why is that seen as being things that, why are we trying to alter the game? There's no problem with the game.
Well, no, this is, I mean, as you rightly say, I mean, this is the European Tour trying to find a way to make their product more appealing. And similarly, when it comes to foot golf, I mean, that is, without being too blunt about it, that is broadly a case of golf facilities that are not profitable or not profitable enough or about to close. It's a way of them finding a way to get people onto their property and using their facilities. It's not necessarily, well, it's not golf, and it's not necessarily helping golf. It's a different kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it isn't golf, is it?
No.
At all, nor is it football. It's just a new sport.
Yeah, foot golf is not golf.
So, not that that's a bad thing. Foot golf may well be very enjoyable.
Yeah, and all power to it. Yeah.
But it's creating participations in a new sport, not the existing sport.
Right.
But with this sort of focus on formats and how people play golf, there are lots and lots of fun, innovative, different formats available to golfers that have existed for hundreds of years. And this was a hot topic in the Olympics, what was the Olympic format going to be? It's quite a hot topic because the Ryder Cup's coming up and people sort of pour over match play and think that's the answer, and the tribalism that it generates is sort of very, very different from the sort of insularity of singles golf that we see week in, week out. And the Olympic organisers chose to go with a men's event and a women's event and play a standard 72-hole stroke play because they thought that was the most credible way of getting the best possible Olympic winner, and they thought that that's what golf needed on its re-entry to the game. So they didn't want to mess around with the format. So I think there's an element that the sort of the 72-hole stroke play is so embedded as the sort of best way of finding the best golfer in that particular week that's what you're stuck with basically.
Well, yeah, we'll be, and in a few weeks' time, we'll be watching four balls and foursomes again, and I'll tell you that four ball golf at the level the Ryder Cup players are playing at is to some degree a lottery. It's a really unsatisfying form of game. I think four ball's great for club players for social golf, but why on earth we play it in the Ryder Cup? Like the foursomes is so much more satisfying to me to watch it in the Ryder Cup than four ball is.
Yeah, sort of agree and disagree. In my opinion, four ball is by far and away the worst form of golf, at any level. So if anyone says to me, "Do you want to make up a four at the weekend?" all I can think of is spending hours and hours and hours and hours watching other people play golf. It's like too many people. There's four balls to look for on every hole. I've got to watch people mark their ball constantly. I know that I'm in 4.5 hour round. It's just tedious. It's just too many.
It's never your turn, is it? That's the problem with four ball.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I spend more time waiting. And then in the Ryder Cup, it's just a total lottery, isn't it?
Yeah, and it takes too long in the Ryder Cup as well.
Yeah. And then the other side of it is that I then speak to sort of people who love four ball because of the banter and the chat that it generates and the competition, and they get to play their own ball, but it's like they can hide behind the fact they've got a partner and they're not as exposed as they are with the medal card. And you think, well, why don't they play foursomes? And people are saying, oh, I don't really like foursomes because I can't get into a rhythm and it's not proper. But to me, like a format like foursomes is like, it's quick. I've got that sort of team element. I get the camaraderie of playing alongside someone else, and I'm out and about playing golf, but it's going to take me 3 hours. I think that's sort of a much better way of doing things.
So if only there were a format of golf that existed that somehow split the difference between foursomes, which is very quick, gets us all moving, gets in the competition, but you don't get to play very many shots, and it's quite demanding. And four balls, where we like the team element, we like the fact that you've got a bit of a chance if you hit a bad shot, it doesn't really matter, and you get to play as a pair, and it's very sociable, and there's four in the group. Now, why can't we think of something that's just in between the two? Because that could be ideal for club golfers, and indeed the Ryder Cup.
So you're like the world's biggest supporter of green sims, aren't you? We had a lovely time at Ganton on our golf day a couple of weeks ago, and we played green sims in the morning rounds, and it went really well. We had a real mixture of abilities, like some plus figure golfers, a couple of people who don't really play golf who were sort of given handicaps in the 30s, and everyone was able to sort of get involved, and the matches were good, and we got round in a sort of decent amount of time. So I can sort of see it from a social point of view. You've got two chances at the drive. You play alternate shot from there, but I'm not sure. Will that translate to tournament golf?
Yeah, I think it's ideal because you effectively get a second serve, don't you, at green sims, and you have the strategy of whose ball you're choosing, if there is a choice, which I guess is probably one for the better players. But if you do get two balls in play, then real strategy is involved because you're not just thinking about the second shot, but you also might be thinking about the third shot and which of the pair will be playing that. I think it does translate very well to the Ryder Cup because you have that element that people love of being able to have an aggressive player hitting driver and trying to take on short par fours or attack par five, and then you might have a safer player who's there playing the percentages, and you're trying to weigh that up against what your opponents are doing on that hole. So I absolutely do think it would work in the Ryder Cup. I think it'd be very entertaining to watch, but it wouldn't take quite as long and would involve that little bit more skill. And I think when you're watching at Ryder Cup level, that's what you want to see.
Yeah. So I think I'm with you actually on green sims as a format is something that sort of translates across the club golfer being able to get out and enjoy competitive golf without it being too brutal, without it taking too long, but also something they could see people playing at Ryder Cup level, and that would give it credibility. So maybe, there you go, maybe that's the answer. So that will help speed of play, it will get club golfers out playing, and it'll give us something new to watch in a professional event. What
I really like about green sims in a club golf format is that for me, if you're playing foursomes, that broadly is favouring the lower handicappers, and if you're playing four ball, that's broadly favouring the higher handicappers. It certainly feels that way. But green sims, I felt when playing it the other week, because I think it gives everyone a chance. So if you've got some shots and you use them well, then I think you can put some really good scores together, just taking advantage of that second serve. But equally, if you're a low handicap pair, then you're going to get a ball in play and probably well down every par four, and that's giving you a chance to make loads of birdies. So it felt to me that you could win either which way, and I don't necessarily feel that's the case now, the foursomes or four balls.
Scoring was really good, wasn't it, in the green sims? That's fair.
Yeah, and that's good fun as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And I played in that green sims with a woman.
Ooh.
and I was comfortable with that. They're just people, as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't make any difference to me whether they're wearing a skirt or a pair of trousers. She was wearing trousers, which probably helped.
And do you always kiss the men you play golf with?
Well, you have real problems with this, don't you?
Well, I'd just like to know what the form is, really.
Well, I don't always kiss all of the women that I know.
Don't you?
Well, not in day-to-day life, no.
Right.
Nor do I kiss the men that I know in day-to-day life.
Right, well, I think there's a funny thing going on when you play in mixed golf. Though when you play with other men, there's always the handshake test, isn't there? So there's some kind of test of manliness and whether you're trying to make a point and you don't want to be too soft, but equally you don't necessarily want to rip someone's hand off, although I guess some people do. But when you're playing in mixed company, then there's a whole new level of decisions to make. And there is an element of physical contact, and there's whether you do a kiss, and if you do a kiss, do you do two kisses? And if you go in first, will she go in the same side, or has she gone into the other side? Or do you just shake hands, or is that seen as a bit cold? And then you've done it all once at the start of the game. It's probably not gone very well. And then what do you know? The game ends, and you have to do it all again. And there's more potential for it to be uncomfortable, or maybe a bit of flirting, or it's just a minefield as far as I'm concerned. I just want to know what the rules are.
So what you're basically saying is that you're a bit awkward around women?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So I think you've also got very soft hands, actually. Sort of worth noting, isn't it? You have got very surprisingly soft hands for a man who spends so much time outdoors. Do you moisturise or something you work on?
No, they're entirely natural.
Yeah. So I think I kind of get where you're coming from on the etiquette thing about do you go in for a peck on the cheek or not. I think what you've got to do is commit to something, and I would say that broadly speaking, given that it's out there, that physical contact, a peck on both cheeks and a sort of little kind of hugging your auntie type hug is an accepted thing. You have to be prepared for it, and furthermore just take the lead, like wade in.
What about if it's been a warm day and you've been out there for a few hours and you're thinking not quite as sweet smelling as I would like to be just at the moment, and maybe I'm just a little bit rough, maybe not had a shave that morning, so a bit rough around the face, or I don't know, maybe I'd really quite like to have a freshen up before going in for any kind of physical contact.
I don't think anyone cares. I think you're overanalyzing it. Like it's 4 seconds contact. You're talking about a kind of a chest bump with a kind of half an arm round, but don't go for a full.
You do a chest bump, really? No. That can't go down well.
It's like a chest bump. So there's contact between your respective chests. Your arm goes round, but it certainly doesn't close. You touch cheeks on either side, but you don't actually physically kiss their cheek, as I understand it. And then back very quickly.
And are you telling me that there's never been any sexual tension in any of these encounters on a golf course for you in your long career?
I'm going to say only in my own brain. I think that any sort of perceived sexual tension is something that I'm kind of working up as a potential scenario on the way around. I'm not sure that that's reciprocated. So no.
Well, I suppose because in this country so few women play golf, which is a massive problem, it probably doesn't come up all that often. I mean, I don't play lots of mixed golf. I certainly don't avoid it, but it just doesn't necessarily come around just because statistically I'm much more likely to be playing with men. And really the problem here is that we just don't play enough mixed golf, right?
Well, just the problem with what you describe in full stop is that you're so unused to encountering women on a golf course that when you do encounter one on a golf course, you don't know what to do. It's like a sort of novelty thing. So you sort of point them out almost. And then certainly when they get close to you, you don't know how close is the right amount of closeness to get to them. And like it's a definite thing in life that balanced environments where there are a sort of roughly equal amount of men and women are miles more productive, because the unfortunate truth is people are guilty of very stereotypical behaviour, and if we are in a room of women, we decide to be more polite, we decide to be more engaging, we try and be more charming, because that's what we're sort of pre-programmed to be. And as soon as we're surrounded by just men, we go back to sort of Neanderthal behaviour of being ultra competitive, brusque, rude. We don't make an effort. So yeah, I think it's a problem, isn't it? There's just not enough women, so we're not very normal people.
And you have a similar problem with how to behave, certainly in recent months, whereby you can't seem to get this match play thing right, can you? So most of us are much more comfortable in the match play environment, but it seems to me that you in match play is a bit like some of the rest of us when playing in mixed golf. You don't quite know where to put yourself, do you?
Well, I just think that like the medal golf, that's the thing in it. So it's how many shots you take, you add it up at the end, and then you decide who's won, and it's like dead simple. And then you get this weird thing in match play where the round's divided into 18 small matches. So bad golf is not correctly rewarded and it's disproportionately punished. So I think that, yeah, and then I get, like, what he's referring to is I've just been beaten in a semi-final of a scratch knockout by a 5 handicapper, so I've effectively got a 5-shot head start on him. And he beat me comfortably, so he beat me sort of on the 17th green, but I was never up in the match. So I can't get my head around match play, but in this scenario, I met him on a weekday afternoon. It's a nice sunny day. You sort of in the mindset of it's a nice friendly game with a fellow club member. It doesn't feel competitive. No one's giving me a card. There's no starter. I've not got the sort of threat of going up 0.1. It feels like there's context missing to it basically, and therefore I can't take it seriously.
But I don't really see the difference. I mean, fair enough, if you're playing in the Open Championship and you're playing a bit of match play, there is a big difference. I'm not really sure I see the distinction between going out in the midweek medal, which you would do quite routinely, and I wouldn't say there's an awful lot of preamble to it, and knocking the midweek medal, and playing in a game of match play. What's the difference?
Well, I think there's sort of any medal, be it midweek or there is a repercussion of bad golf, so there's this sort of looming threat of 0.1. I don't think you would understand how much I obsess about 0.1 in either direction for a start, whereas in a match play game there's no real, if I lose the match play game I just don't have to play golf again in that format, and that's no great hardship. My handicap hasn't changed, I haven't gone up or down, and actually the bigger potential repercussion of the match that I played against the guy from my club is that he's someone that I see at the golf club 40 times a year, but I only ever play golf with him once a year when we're drawn against each something. So he is forming an opinion on me as a human being based on that 3.5 hours. And more than that, this particular guy is like one of the club's biggest gobshites, so his opinion on me as a human being will filter around the rest of the club. So actually, me winning in that scenario is him leaving with a positive view of me as a person. So I don't want to be the guy who is trying to grind him into the dirt during a match play competition. I don't want to be the guy who's not giving him putts. I don't want to be the guy who's not speaking to him, so I think that increases my chances of winning. I want to leave with my reputation as a human enhanced. I want him to leave that game thinking, oh, I played with Tom and it was great, we chatted all the way around, what a lovely guy, and the result sort of fades into insignificance.
See, I think I'd say the opposite, that there's a bigger sense of occasion about a game of match play than there is certainly your average comp, because you're in an average comp, if you don't play very well, like your score just melts into the rest of the field. But if you get knocked out of the match play, certainly at a club like ours with a small membership, I feel like goes around the whole club. I feel like the next time I go up, everyone's saying, oh, he got beaten by X, or he lost to Y. You wouldn't have expected that. There's more embarrassment. I think you're more exposed in match play. And similarly, there's just nothing better than checking after a match has finished and your opponent's gone, that he's done what he should do, which is write your name up, and you just got to have a quick peek at the draw. That's really satisfying, seeing your name advance, and you have a look at the possible future opponents and who you might get next. And that to me is like increasing your status at the club, whereas an average round in the medal is sort of neither here nor there to me.
So it's a sort of nuanced thing. So we're both basically worried about what other people are going to say about us.
Oh yeah.
You're slightly more worried about what they're going to say about how your golf's been, and I'm more worried about what they think of me as a person, which is really weird. I can't figure that.
Well, I do take your point about how you behave in these events. I agree, it's like a social occasion, but you're also trying to win a match, and I do get that, because you're trying to strike this balance between being a reasonable person and like not being a dick, but you're also really wanting to win. And then, then that often manifests itself in these daft thing called gimmies, whereby part of it is nothing to do with strategy. It's to do with how it's like dinner party behaviour. It's like whether you've picked up you've got your plate on the right side, or you've used the right glass for your sherry or something. And to confuse it with strategy is just nothing to do with it. And that, I think, gimmies are the cause of more arguments and discomfort than just more trouble than they're worth, quite frankly. Let's just get the ball in the hole. It's the idea of the game and get on with it.
You are like a gimme Nazi, aren't you?
Well, I think people forget that the concept of a gimme is that the ball is hanging over the edge of the hole and it's just a time-saving device. Gimmies are not acts of charity. This is what gets lost. I mean, how many times have you yourself sort of hopefully thought that someone will give you something, and how many times have you seen an opponent and you know that they're hoping that they're going to give you it, or you feel guilty asking them to hold it? Well, I try and take myself out of it. I try and expect absolutely nothing, and I give very little, and I just get on with it. And I don't want them to miss it particularly. In fact, often when they're over a 2.5 footer or a 3 footer, I'm thinking, I really hope you get this, because I don't want to create an atmosphere in the game. But that's ridiculous. It's up to them to get the ball in the hole, and then we put it against however many it's taken me, and we decide who's won that hole, and off we go.
Yeah, apart from the fact that gimmies exist means that decision making is arbitrary. Like you're saying that 4 inches is enough for you. 4 inches isn't enough for some people, because it is possible to miss 4 inches. So you have to have a hard and fast gimmies are acceptable or gimmies aren't acceptable.
Well, to me, I'd rather they just weren't part of the game. It'd just be much simpler.
But then we'll be taking like all week to play golf.
Not really, because if it's 2 inches away, then it's not going to take any time to tap it, is it?
Yeah, but if you had it your way, right, so we all play like loads of corporate 4-ball golf, and it is like ridiculous, the pomp and ceremony of people when you get 4 balls around a hole sort of 2.5, 3 feet away, and everyone's like tippy-toeing round, making sure they don't get on each other's line, putting their ball markers down. Oh, it's too big because it's one of them stupid blooming casino chip things, so can you move it slightly to the right? And like, you've got on the green, it's taken 6 minutes to get on the green, and then we're all looking at these 2-foot putts for about 10 minutes whilst we all geometrically work out what is the correct route to get to my marker, which happens to be on the other side. And it'd be so much easier if we just said, actually, anything inside a putter length is a gimme, and let's move on.
Yeah, well, I just don't bother with greens, I say. I mean, if you've got it on the green, then let's just get on the next tee. I mean, and in fact, if it's near the green, that's near enough for me. In fact, if you've got a wedge, there's no point, is there, playing on from there? Well,
what a silly point to make. So this again comes down to, is there actually anything on it? So if you go and play, and I know you hate medal golf because you can't do it, but if you go and play in a...
No need for that, was there?
If you go and we'll come back to that. If you go and play in a scratch event, which is you and it's your handicap's going to change as a result of it, then absolutely no gimmies, you knock everything in. If you're playing a 4-ball where the field is of varying different abilities, and let's face it, half of them have probably got made up handicaps or they haven't played for a year, so the handicap's out of date anyway. It's a totally informal thing. You might be there for work purposes, you might be there for charity purposes. The result of the game is secondary to the experience that you're having on the day, and the experience is detracted from by it being too serious and taking too much time. So there should be, I think, sense applied, and you should be able to say, do you know what, you're 1.5 foot away, it's a gimme, and there should be a rule before people go out, and it would speed things up, it would fray people's nerves less, and it wouldn't matter a jot in terms of the result of the day.
Well, we're just back to it's like dinner table etiquette again, isn't it? Like, that's what causes a problem when everyone's footing around near the hole. Like, it'd be easier if people weren't quite so inhibited, and if as golfers we weren't so het up in silly matters of etiquette, and when somebody was near the hole, I'd just go up and knock it in, and just let's stop worrying about people's lines and marking it unnecessarily. It really wouldn't bother me, especially not in a corporate 4, friendly 4, if someone just went and got on with it and then got out of the way.
Why can't you play medal golf?
Well, there's no need for that, is there? Well, it's just a lack of practice. Don't play enough in the format, and then my golf just isn't up to it on a demanding course. It doesn't mean I don't like playing it or don't aspire to play it. It's just a bit of a battle when you're not practicing properly.
Why does it make any difference to you that it's medal? Because you would go out and play, like if we went out and played now and we just said, right, we're going to play off stick end and we're going to play 18 holes, then you would beat me. But if we went out and said, right, we're going to go and play in the medal off the white tees at Old Woodley, then I would say I'd definitely beat you, 100%, in both cases.
Yeah. Well, it's just a lack of practice in medal. That's all. I think it's very, very difficult to go and play medal, as I do personally at the moment, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and just switch it on because it's just too unfamiliar. If you're playing comps every week, then I'm sure I'll be absolutely fine with it.
But what's the difference though? So you're unfamiliar with having to record a score where bad golf is punished, whereas in a match play format or in a stable format, if you hit it one off the planet, that doesn't matter. So you're sort of more comfortable. Is that what you're saying? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It's just a mental thing, isn't it? It's just quite wearing to go all the way around in the knowledge that nothing's done till it's done, and it's quite simply down to a lack of practice.
So what do you think we'll see in the Ryder Cup then? So do you think that there is this idea that people are more specialists in a match play format? Do you think there are people who thrive in that environment, or do you think that's a myth?
No, I think there's an element of truth in that. I think there are some people who get into it and tend to play the best golf, maybe with a bit of needle in it, or there are some people definitely who play better with someone alongside them, and that definitely happens in the Ryder Cup. Other people who are much better when they're by themselves. I mean, you think of, to just name 2, you think Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy are 2 who seem to play much better and whose singles records. I mean, Rory, okay, relatively early stage of his Ryder Cup career, but I think you can see a trend. Never quite seems to look as comfortable playing pairs as he does playing by himself, and we know that was the case with Tiger. Actually, a little bit the case with Phil Mickelson as well over his time. So, I think the golfers who play individually, week in, week out, year in, year out, and who are trying to beat the brains of the people they're playing against, I don't think it does necessarily come naturally to them to be playing alongside somebody. It is a slightly different mindset, yeah.
I don't think they're bothered, are they? Really? Like McIlroy said 3 or 4 years ago, he thought it was nothing more than an exhibition match.
Yeah, I think he's changed his mind on that. I think there was something. I'm all for McIlroy speaking out. But if you do speak out, you're never always going to get it right, are you? And I think he's very quick to say things, which is brilliant. And I think he's generally quick to say if he thinks he's got something wrong, which is also brilliant. And all power to him. I don't think that's his opinion now.
Right. So maybe we've got lots of Ryder Cup podcasts lined up for next week. We'll get stuck into some of this then. But I think that's it for today. So we've concluded that we're awful around women as a collective, and we would really like somebody to give us some rules on how to behave.
On and off the golf course, really.
Yeah. We might start a campaign for Greensome's golf being the format that's going to change the world. Dan can't play medal, I can't play match play, and we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
See you next week.